Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have with me a fantastic guest all the way from Australia. He's live with me right now. Of course, he won't be with you because you're going to listen to this later. And he has a fantastic single coming out, coupled with a product you would not expect, inspired by something that you would not expect. So let's get into all of it. Here he is, Greg Nunan. Greg, how are you?
Hey, Scott. Thanks so much for having me here on your show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I love the room that you're in here. The lighting, it's just got so much going on.
Yeah, it's a pretty busy room. It's got all sorts of things going on. It's my little happy place.
Yeah, I think the hanging face is my favorite over your left shoulder there.
Yeah, that's a new acquisition actually. We've got a big Royal Sydney show on at the moment, and we were there a couple of days ago, and I saw a pretty cool mask, and I grabbed it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes if something strikes you, you just got to have it, right?
That's it. You gotta take it.
How are things with the live situation in Australia these days? Now you're in Sydney, so there's a lot of places to play, I would imagine. How are things? Are they starting to fill up again?
Yeah, look, there's a real vibe happening. I think, after with the pandemic having everyone locked down, particularly in Australia, we had quite severe lockdowns. People are really keen to get out and get their music fix.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing festivals and venues really filling up. There's a really strong scene happening down in Melbourne, as well as Sydney is really firing up, which is great. I mean, we need it as much as anyone else to get out there and play, and we're thankfully able to do it at the moment, and just loving it.
Oh, that's good to hear. Now, is it mostly Australian bands that are playing, or are you starting to see bands fly in from other countries now?
Yeah, great question. It's predominantly Australian bands still. I think airlines are slowly getting back into it. I mean, at the moment, we've got on the news here that airlines are just struggling at the minute because with COVID, the rules are if you got COVID, you've got to isolate, and there's still a lot of staffing issues with that. Mm-hmm. Particularly, like obviously we're going into Easter, and people going away for holidays with school kids on holidays, and it's really banking up. But yeah, we've got probably our biggest festival, Byron Bay Blues Fest, and it's all Australian acts. A lot of the international acts. Actually, no, it's a lie. There are some international acts coming in for that, but it has been predominantly rolled over because Blues Fest was to go ahead with only Australian acts. But look, we just can't wait for people in the Northern Hemisphere to come down and do their tours, and likewise for ourselves to get out and get busy as well.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, you bring up a really good point with the airlines. I've heard also part of the issue is just insuring the shows and, the travel insurance and everything. Everybody's kind of like, I'm not sure I want to be insuring this, but it seems like the festivals are kind of the gateway to start opening that up a little bit, because American bands are going over to Europe for some of the big festivals.
Yeah.
It seems like that's kind of like, let's test it here. Yeah. And if we can make it work, then we'll start opening up. I mean, we're seeing a couple of international acts here, but it's not what we're used to by any means,
Yeah.
So, but it's a start.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot about the mindset of the community as well. That's just slowly, but getting the footing and feeding with how get it back to a place where it was. It'll take some time.
Oh, absolutely. But I kind of feel like the door's opening a little bit. So, hopefully it just stays that way. Let's talk about Greg Nunan and the General Jacksons. You guys have a new album on the way. Do you have an anticipated release date?
We do. We're releasing it Saturday, 30th of April. So only a couple of weeks where we've got it coming out. It's been a long time coming for us, obviously with the pandemic and lockdown. like so many other bands, we couldn't get in the same studio and work things. So we had to work around that, recording from our own places and bring it together. And it's coming together really great. I mean, last night, my drummer, Liam Chandler, he come over and who's basically produced and mixed the whole album, bar Be Like Water. Well, he helped produce it. We got another fella to mix that for us. Ben, who runs Evelyn Studios, fantastic guy. And we've just got the mixers in a really great place, and we're soon to be pressing the mastering process to tie it all off and have it ready to go.
I imagine you're kind of feeling an excitement of, I really want to just get this done and get it out there to the people, but also that nervousness of how is it going to be received? I hope people like it.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling to release an album. There's so many emotions that go with it.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. I think you make a great point that there's some there's sense of relief, but then there's, I guess, also an excitement for how it's received. But I think the next chapter of that creative energy that it releases and then allows the new songs to come in to be made post release of an album, which is, I find, really exciting.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then there's, going out and playing live and being able to showcase the new material and, liven up your set for yourself. Because as much as you love the songs that you write, playing them night after night after night, like, you've got to have a little more variety. So that's another exciting thing about releasing an album, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a whole raft of different things on the go, and it's exciting. I mean, just to get in front of people, to play live again, to sharpen those skills of performance and playing. It's just so good to be able to do it again.
Yeah, I can imagine. The new single that you've already released from the album, called Be Like Water, you can stream it on his website. I've got that link in the show notes for you guys. Let me tell you something, Greg. The first time I listened to it, I just immediately fell in love with it. It's got such a warm tonality to it, but yet there's so many dynamics going on. I'm hearing at least 3 separate guitar tracks through the verses. And then in the chorus, it changes again, of course. But the feeling of the song is just amazing. How did this one come together?
Well, it's an interesting story. Through the pandemic, being separated from my family, because I'm in Sydney, most of my family's in Melbourne. I was talking to my sister on the phone, and she'd been going through quite a hard time. And at that time, we were catching up. I'd been reading about the Tao Te Ching, the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, which was ancient Chinese texts from Lao Tzu, 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Jesus was born. And the wisdom out of these 81 verses and is just astounding and life-changing when you read these verses. And we're just having a talk about how the discussion of just observing nature and how it can give you an understanding of what it is that can give you relief, in particular water, in how it's formless and it likes to go low to find its place, and the wisdom behind that, and we're just talking about that, and of course the famous Bruce Lee video. I'm sure you've seen it, how he's saying, "Be like water."
Oh yeah,
become the form that it takes on. And that really resonated and helped with my sister, and it was quite a moment. So much so that it resonated the next day for me to write the song, and it just came about. And so, by the time brought it to the band and we recorded it, we developed it to a point where it was a real front runner with the album. Thinking, wow, this is probably one need to look at to release as a single, and that we did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not anything that I would consider an album track, regardless of what else you've got. I mean, it just jumps right out and says people need to hear this song. The first question, obviously, is how is your sister doing now?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, no, she's really good. She's in a great spot, and really can't wait to go down on Friday. We're going down to visit my family down in Victoria, the state of Victoria, on the Big Murray River. We're going to have a really good family catch up, and she'll be there, and it'll be great to see everyone. But she's doing great. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and you'll be by the water, so that's kind of perfect for this whole thing.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me about the song, I mean, the mix is fantastic, by the way. It's really well balanced. But what grips me, I think, is the particular chord changes. It's like not the standard chord change. It's just like a little bit beyond the standard, but it's not so far off that it throws you out of the song. You know what I mean? It's just that right chord change, exactly what it needs to be interesting, but not confusing.
Yeah. Look, I think, look, for me, I think I was also listening to a lot of Audio Slave at the time, and revisiting their fantastic first album. And I think just trying to find something that's quite solid in bass, in a really strong groove, but nothing that's going to be overstated, that was going to just be the absolute platform to have this dialogue, which I wanted it to relate to not only me, but if I could relate it to me, these words, just not to worry about stuff, that things will work out, that I knew the song would take shape. And, wrote it first on acoustic, and that sort of always makes it feel a little bit more grounded. But trying to find a few different sounds and tones in there. I think I was also mixing some Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, some riffs in there that I felt were going to thread through, and all sorts of different things. So yeah,
there's a distorted guitar track that comes in the right ear that just sounds. It's not really muted, but the notes are not quite staccato, but a little bit more than that. But it's just like a variation that's just enough to make me pick it out. But again, not enough to throw me off. Like the song rides that line so well. But you know what? Now that you're telling me all this, I realize what it is it feels like it's somebody putting their arm around me and saying, it's going to be okay. Here's how we're going to get through this. And it's very comforting.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And that was the intention. And I think that's the whole intention of like the 81 verses, of where that inspiration comes from. Even when Bruce Lee is talking about be like water, it's just to allow your natural senses to go, you know what, things will work out. It might be really hard at the moment, but if we just keep on, just go through this day, and I can keep on the right footing. And so that's really good to hear that. And that's the whole intention of the song.
Yeah. And, you can't go wrong with Bruce Lee wisdom. I mean, the guy was just, he understood the world in a way that I wish we could all do as a over, like the whole population could see things. He didn't get caught up in politics and all the other things that keep people separated. He was just very much one with the elements, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, he sure was. Look, I think with that song and revisiting his interpretations of that particular verse, he definitely walked the walk that he talked.
Yeah.
He didn't mince his words. He spoke what he felt, and that's what great people do. And I think there's a lot to be said of that wisdom and just being yourself. Don't worry about anything else. Just do you.
Yeah.
And he certainly did that.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me that the concept or the feel of it is almost like the song "Don't Worry, Be Happy," but that song to me was always just kind of cheesy and commercial, whereas
Yeah.
this is just a very natural. You just put it on, and within the first 5 seconds, you just start feeling better. Like you start feeling the stress melt away, and that's just the music. Then the message comes in, and then you kind of feel the arm come around your shoulder. It's just a beautiful song. I'm so glad that you guys wrote it and that you put it out there because I'm always afraid that some of the best songs in the world are ones that people are afraid to release.
Yeah, true. It's a funny thing. There's always that risk. I think in the back of the head is people going to how people going to take this, as you said, like an album. There's so much that goes into it. You're putting your best foot forward, and sometimes like even the songs that you didn't recognize as the forefront for you might have that resonation with so many others that you missed a bet. There's the pleasant surprise aspect. That's always exciting as well.
Yeah, and there's many times too where I've heard bands talk about hits that they've had, and they said, we just thought that was an album track. We didn't think,
yeah.
And then the record company said we're releasing this, and they're like, no, and they did it. And
Yeah,
it became a hit. So it really is just how everybody feels everything their own way, but there's so much that goes into it. It's not just how they feel about the song; it's what mood were they in when they listened to it the first time? How distracted were they? Were they relaxed or busy? And there's so many things that go into it. And that's for all your listeners too.
Yeah. Oh, look, that is, I've always been fascinated by that because there are obviously some tracks in history, like you said, that just they make their own way. It's like, I've always thought that the music comes through you. It's not like, oh, it's all me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel a lot of the time, that it's sort of like you're an antenna to that inspiration and it goes through you. And tracks in history that have just gone absolutely crazy with popularity, I think is really quite fascinating. And, record companies and big businesses over time have really tried to formulate that and try and encapsulate that, but there's still this thing that's the magic that you can't encapsulate, that the thing that you think would not be so good actually does. The surprise about that's the wonderful thing about music and performance and art. I just love that.
And I often encourage people to, if you hear something and you don't like it, give it another chance another day, whether it be a week later, a few years later, a decade later, whatever it is, because tastes change, but also the situation that you're in when you hear it is going to be different. So, maybe you'll find things that you kind of cast off to the side immediately. You might actually enjoy them under different circumstances. So I always try and encourage people to give things another chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Come back to some stuff that you might not have resonated with you, but did with others, and see if it's got weight. And usually, more often than not, it does too. And I think too that there's a lot of great songs that have been covered in a quite different way that hold up, and that's a telltale sign of a great song as well.
Oh, very much.
Where it can be stretched, sped up, slowed down, done all sorts of things to it, and it just still stands. It's still got what it has in it to appeal.
I think Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles would be a really good example of that. I've heard so many different styles of that song being done by people, and I'm always amazed that they find another angle. They find another way to make the song interesting, and it was already an interesting song.
Yeah, a great example there with the Beatles, absolutely. And I think too, people forget that they wrote that many songs, that they actually gave songs to artists, emerging artists, that became hits. And that's a telltale sign of the magic, really. I mean, you don't know that this person, this band had wrote the song for this artist, and it went to number one.
Right.
I think another good example is Islands in the Stream. Dolly Parton and
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers. but a lot of people don't know that was written by the Bee Gees. And
Really?
yeah,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah. And when you listen to that and you listen to the Bee Gees, you have that aha moment, go, oh yeah, it is of that sound. And like with the Monkees and who was the writer for the Monkees? Famous guy.
Was it Neil Diamond?
Neil Diamond. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Diamond wrote their hits. Another great example of how that can carry on.
You got Prince writing songs for the Bangles, and
yes, yeah, so on and so forth. There are many examples where you go, oh, that's an awesome song. Who are these people? And sometimes, and a lot of the time, it's not their writing, but they have the packaging that works. That seems that's the box that needs to be in for that, right, for it to take off. So there's some very clever things that go on with art, and that it's always a journey and something to enjoy.
Absolutely. Speaking of things to enjoy, you've done something really interesting with this song in the way of promotion that I've not seen anyone really do. And there's an irony with the Bruce Lee inspiration here, because Bruce Lee did not drink alcohol, and his characters also did not drink alcohol. So I remember in the movie, I think it was Fists of Fury, when his character got drunk, he didn't really know how to be drunk. So it was a completely interesting interpretation of what being drunk was, because he had never been that way. But you have released a beer, a short run beer called Be Like Water.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really neat idea. I've heard it's very tasty. Beautiful design on the can, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this is the can here. As you can see, a band name and Be Like Water. And you can see the artwork is actually of our friend, Steve Pager. He's got a website, pagerism.com. He's an artist here in Sydney. And that's his girlfriend's dog that he painted in the water that he took a photo of. He was underneath in the ocean there, took a photo camera and ended up painting this canvas. Amazing picture. And Buckety's is the brewery there. A beautiful brewery here in the northern beaches of Sydney. And there's a QR code here that when you scan that, it takes you to stream the song. So when you're drinking the beer, you're tasting the flavors of what the song's about and the feel of it. And it's thankfully just a really good drop. The brewery's really happy with how it's come out, and so are the punters. A lot of people who drink there, getting it on tap, and also, taking a case of beer home. And yeah, it's really hit a spot. People are really enjoying that, and obviously linking, like we are now, the music to the beer, but also then the beer to the music, and it's quite a collaboration that we're really happy that we've done.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept, and I'm glad that people are liking it. Are you hoping that this will eventually take off and be kind of a thing of its own?
Look, as you mentioned, it is a short run of beer. And look, I mean, I think a lot of artists have been doing, a lot of commercial bands have been able to secure deals with bigger breweries and companies and so forth. But I think there's that inspiration there that, the typical CDs or the T-shirts as merch can go beyond. There are different things that can be endorsed in different ways. And yeah, breaking the mold, I think, just having fun. I mean, Nick, who runs the brewery, is just an avid music fan and a musician himself. And he's just done a lot for the musicians around the area. And it's fast becoming one of the most popular breweries in northern part of Sydney, at least. It's and he's doing wonderful things, and people are getting behind it. So we're really thankful, and I think it's an ode to the musicians of Sydney and beyond. To that, hey, it's all about having a go, and that's what he's done with us.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that's making people happy as well. And I love the QR code on that. That's a really great idea. If you guys want a clearer picture of the artwork, it's on the website. And you can also stream the song Be Like Water right off of the website. I have had, it was an unofficial wine that was basically based off of the Deep Purple Mark I, writing style on their albums. I think it was Book of Taliesin. And it was a fairly tasty wine, but that kind of ties in because you did some work with Deep Purple, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, there's quite an interesting story. I've been over the years going to Singapore to play at the world famous Crazy Elephant Bar with the famous Blues Machine band, and that come about through a gig here in Sydney. A fellow who'd been going to this particular bar in Singapore. He was been living there for many years. They needed a front lead person for the band, and it all come together. And before I knew it, I air tickets. I was packed up, ready to go to Singapore to lead the band for 3 months. This was back years ago, and so I got there, and the plan was, let's just hit the road running and just pick up songs along the way. I'm pretty good at directing, like as we're playing. Mm-hmm. And I met the band, and we started playing, and Deep Purple walked into the bar to jam, and I'm like, what's going on here? This is insane. And just drinking with Ian Gillan. I mean, in a shout with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, buying beers, drinking, and the band, we get up and jam. It was a lot of fun. And that was the first night, and I'd done 7 tours to Singapore, probably across 15 years. Wow. And each time there's always an interesting story. We had Bette Midler's horn section come in when she was on tour through Asia. They were awesome. And some just incredible artists from all corners of the globe. So many unknowns that you just go, why aren't you famous? Like, just insane. Sure. And it's a really great, wonderful journey. And Singapore is just a wonderful city. If you've never been to Southeast Asia, it's just a great starting spot to fly into Singapore. Get an understanding and bearing of the culture of Asia there, and then you can go easily beyond into different parts of Southeast Asia and Asia that's also different in itself. Wonderful part of the world. Really cool.
A lot like our Nashville here, where you can just randomly run into some of the world's top musicians because they just happen to be in town, and there's a jam session going on, and they just go up and start playing.
Oh, so love to go to Nashville. Yeah, look, that's about it. I've got a couple of mates who are over there, and they talk of such things. That's so cool. Really cool.
Even the last couple, well, not after the pandemic, but the previous albums that Deep Purple had recorded with Bob Ezrin, they recorded in Nashville, and they would just go to the clubs afterwards if they wanted to jam. And I mean, just to be a musician that's living in Nashville would probably be magical enough, and thinking of all the records that are made there and that, but just to be sitting in a bar and Deep Purple walks in and starts playing, I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, it was a really surreal moment. I'm like going, oh man, I can't wait to tell my sisters who are massive fans and my mates, and it was pretty crazy. A lot of fun.
But see, that's one of the beautiful things about this business is when you're in line with those kind of gigs, and you were probably just happy enough to have the gig, let alone those kind of benefits,
Yeah, it really was. I mean, there was just a way about the place. It wasn't like all hi-fi and big, and it was very low key, and it just had this simple magic about it. Great music. It had great beers, great food, very humble. I mean, you could sign the wall with a pen, or the tables. There's graffiti everywhere, and there's another story actually. John Chi, the famous guitar player who runs the Crazy Elephant, and was the guitarist in the band as well. Fabulous guitarist and gentleman. He Robbie Williams from will basically come in to the bar and was keen to get up and play, but John Chi he's blues, soul, rock and roll. He wasn't across all pop artists and stuff like that. Anyway, Robbie went up to him to see if he could jam, and John was always accommodating. He just said, "Oh, let us just do this set, and we'll call you up a little later and stuff." And not realizing that Robbie Williams was a superstar, and then later on, he's like looking around for him, and either the bar manager goes, "John, what happened with Robbie Williams?" And he's like, "Robbie who?" Like that guy that wanted to get. He didn't realize, and Robbie just didn't wait around for it. He was like, "Oh, that's cool." Had his beer and went. But John is such a lovely, humble guy. He would have gotten anyone up and treats people the same. But sure. it was a funny story that.
Oh man, I bet when he figured out what happened, he probably felt like, oh, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I probably did. I think he did. I know when they told me and John was with us, it was a bit of a wry smile, just going, "Oh well, I can't make everyone happy, can I?" So, but he's cool, and I'm sure Robbie Williams was all sweet. It's just one of those moments, you know.
Yeah. Now, as if all this stuff wasn't enough, you have another thing that keeps you kind of busy on Thursdays. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I do a broadcast from here in my little basement setup that goes to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and it's called Good Afternoon. And we have live music. I'm playing music in here. We have different artists that come in or stream in to play. We have different interviews with all sorts of different people, and play trivia as well. We have people tune in from all parts of the world to be involved. It's quite interactive, and we have a lot of fun. Also make some silly commercial breaks, just silly skits that we make, me and my son and a couple of my buddies. We pull some funny little commercial breaks together, and we have a lot of fun, and it goes out to anyone who's interested and wants to come and join in the fun. It's good fun.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll have those links in the show notes for you guys as well, so you can check those out. Now, the YouTube one, I imagine, stays on YouTube. So if you want to catch up with past episodes, they should be available there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good call.
Perfect.
Call. You can tune into YouTube and watch some past episodes and have a bit of a laugh and get a feel for it before maybe joining us live on a Thursday.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Well, Greg, I'm really excited to hear the new album, to see you guys get this out to the world. Definitely excited for you guys to get back out there and start playing. Hopefully before too much longer, maybe you'll be able to do a North American tour. That'd be fantastic.
We would love that. We really would. We'll have to drum you up on the phone and say, dude, point us in the right direction to some cool places to get in on.
Absolutely will. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come on the show. And I wish you guys the best with the single and the album. Like I said, I absolutely love the single. I can't wait for everyone in the world to hear it. I can't imagine anybody listening to that and not feeling something. If they do, they have no soul.
Oh, good form, Scott. Well, it's a good morning here from Sydney, Australia, and a good evening, I believe, to you over there in America.
It is.
So,
yeah.
Thanks very much for having me, Scott.
My pleasure, Greg. You take care and come back and see us again.
Will do.
Thank you. Bye-bye.